Yeah, we'll get more into the Oregon-Penn State matchup tomorrow. College football playoff rankings are out. As it pertains to Oregon, we were looking at it, and again, none of this is set in stone, but it kind of boils down to this, generally speaking. If Oregon beats Penn State, they're going to obviously get a bye, and then they will play a neutral site game against the winner of Tennessee-Ohio State or Tennessee-Georgia. So depending on who you want, if it would be Ohio State versus Georgia, I mean, Tennessee may be either of them, I don't know. But if they don't, and you have to pick between Ohio State and Georgia, you would play Ohio State if Georgia beats Texas. You would play Georgia if Georgia loses to Texas. So depending on how you feel about meeting up with Georgia versus Ohio State, that gives you a rooting interest in the Georgia-Texas game. Again, in general.
Sure.
Because the 8-9 matchup, Georgia would drop if they lose to Texas, and they could fall into that game against Tennessee.
Yeah. So like I said, we're all waiting for seeding to this point, and in Oregon, take care of business, get the.
But if they don't,
then
Oregon then would fall to the 5 seed,
Yeah.
and that is not a bad scenario either.
No.
No, you don't get a bye, but you would likely play either Boise State or the Big 12 champion in the first game at Autzen.
And more than likely,
And then if you win that, you get the other one who has the bye as the 4 seed.
And more than likely, like, I don't think it's impossible to say that Arizona State could jump Boise, but Boise would be beating a ranked UNLV team. And so if Boise wins, chances are you would get the Iowa State, Arizona State winner, and then Boise or UNLV. That's the other one. Remember this. Like, I mean, something weird could happen. If UNLV, who lost to Boise State by, 4 or 5 points in their first matchup, if UNLV wins, UNLV's in.
Yep.
And then Arizona State or Iowa State, they would get the bye. They would be ranked higher than.
So imagine there is a scenario if Oregon loses to Penn State where they could play Iowa State UNLV at Autzen, and then their next game is a neutral site game against Iowa State.
Yeah, which, like, you want to talk about a sweet path forward. I mean, you'd be 3 touchdown favorites.
Is that not the easiest path possible?
It would be a nice little pass. So that's, if you do lose to Penn State, which I don't think they will, I'm taking Oregon in this game. I'm a little surprised that it's only 3.5. I think this is more like a touchdown game to me. Of course, I have been saying all year I am not a huge Penn State guy. If you do lose to Penn State, this would be the silver lining of all silver linings. In fact, there's some. I was listening to Josh Pate was on with Dirt and Sprague, and Pate was of the mind of, he said, if you gave me a coin flip game, let's say you had to play Ohio State or you had to play Georgia. That's a coin flip game. Oregon playing Ohio State, Oregon playing Georgia, right? It's a coin flip game. Or
meaning it's hard to tell which one you
want. It's
want.
hard to tell, right? Like that's going to be, that spread is going to be,
about the same.
1 to 3 points, right? One way or another. Or you're going to play UNLV, Boise State, Arizona State, Iowa State. You got to play 2 of those teams. You are going to be probably 17-point favorites in both of those games. And he said, I would rather play the 2 17-point games than the one coin flip game.
Well, I think you have a better chance of getting into the semifinals of the tournament by playing those 2 games.
Yeah.
I do. But I also am not scared of playing Ohio State or Georgia.
No.
And particularly sitting and waiting on them playing another tough game while you have a bye.
I just don't like the idea of playing given my choice, I will always play one less game, because we can sit up here and say all we want that UNLV and Boise State and Arizona State have nothing to offer Oregon. And yet we all watched Boise State take Oregon. And I get this is a different Oregon team. But we watched Genty run all over Oregon, and we watched Boise State, with the exception of 2 special teams plays, they should have beat Oregon. And I don't know about you, I don't want anything to do with Arizona State right now. Crazy-ass Kenny Dillingham has those boys playing.
They're hot.
With their hair on fire right now.
Yeah.
And you can say all you want that Arizona State athletically shouldn't be able to compete with you. Neither should Boise. So
they can knock you off for sure.
I just don't like the idea of tempting fate with another game, especially with this idea of, well, those are cakewalks. That's what Michigan probably said when they played TCU and was like, remember 2 years ago? They're like, TCU. And what happened? TCU jumped up and bit you in the ass. And Michigan was left standing there being like, what the hell
Yeah.
was that?
I think I'm going to take the bye as well. But that is interesting. I mean, UNLV and Iowa State. I mean, come on.
I know, right?
Come on, man. Really? I'd love to be on that side of the bracket and let Texas and Georgia and Ohio State and all those guys beat each other up.
Yeah. I'm just excited for this. I think this is going to be such a fun
It's going to be
bracket.
awesome.
And it's going to be crazy that Alabama, which fan base feels more like a horse's ass? That Ohio State right now is ready to run Ryan Day out of town. Ohio State's in. And Alabama, which for like the last 3 weeks, Kalen DeBoer is Satan himself. And yet Alabama, more than likely, is in this thing. And it's such a weird thing for these two massive fan bases to both go into this tournament hating their team, hating their coaches, and thinking that they have no chance at this whatsoever. And yet it's Alabama and Ohio State, and both have a place at the table.